Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Everything is structured for YouTube narration, fully within monetization policy guidelines, and told from the perspective of a whiny, emotionally raw husband. Here's the rewritten part 1 of 8. Part 1, She paused our love, I pressed delete. Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions, where real stories get raw. Let's get into it. She called me on her lunch break just to tell me she didn't dream about me anymore. That was the moment everything cracked. Not a breakup. Not a fight. Just a simple statement, like she was talking about the weather. I haven't had a dream about you in weeks, she said between bites of her salad. Isn't that strange? No, Emily. It's not strange. It's honest. And brutal. And it hit harder than anything you ever screamed in a fight. She didn't even say goodbye. Just, talk later. But we didn't. Because the next day, she wanted to take a break. She texted it, by the way. Not even a call. Just a few little dots, a vibration, and then. I think we should take a break. Just for clarity. Nothing dramatic. Red heart. Nothing dramatic. I stared at that message for 4 hours before replying with a single word. Okay. And that was the last thing I said to her. She wanted a break. So I broke everything. I cleared her drawer in the bathroom. Packed her old hoodie into the box it came in. Unfollowed her Spotify. Cancelled the brunch with her parents I agreed to even though I'm allergic to their dog. I gave her all the space she didn't know how to measure. And in the silence that followed, something terrifying happened. I felt peace. I slept better. I didn't flinch when my phone buzzed. I stopped pretending I liked the rooftop bar she dragged me to every Thursday, just for the view. I rediscovered the taste of food I actually liked, not the gluten-free experiments she made me smile through. And just when I was beginning to forget the smell of her shampoo, she came back. Not with flowers. Not with apologies. But with questions. Why didn't you wait for me? Why didn't you fight? Do you even love me? Emily, you told me to press pause. But I hit stop. And now you're the one rewinding. When you give someone everything, your attention, your trust, your patience, you never expect the loudest thing in the world to be their silence. But it was. And Emily's absence didn't just leave a gap in the apartment, it carved out something raw in me that I couldn't patch with distractions. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not because I wanted to protect her. Not because I was ashamed. But because I didn't want to say it out loud. I knew if I did, it would become real. And I wasn't ready for that. The first weekend without her, I made coffee and poured 2 mugs out of habit. I left one on the kitchen counter for someone who wasn't coming back. I caught myself standing at the door, waiting to hear her keys jingle outside, waiting to hear the soft thump of her bag hitting the floor. Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the whisper of a life that used to be shared. But something shifted when I checked our shared cloud drive and found that she had deleted all the photos from the last 3 months. Every picture from our weekend in Santa Fe. Gone. The blurry selfie in the car where she laughed with her head tilted back. Gone. Even the video of us dancing in socks in the hallway. Like it never happened. Like I never mattered. You want to know what it's like to watch someone slowly erase you from their narrative while pretending they're just taking space. It's not like getting dumped. It's like watching a fire die one spark at a time while you stand there holding the last match, wondering if it's even worth striking. And just when I started accepting the emptiness, just when I began repainting the wall she always hated that I left blank, she reappeared. A voicemail. Her voice was soft, nervous. Hey, I know I said I needed space, but I can't stop thinking about you. I miss your voice. I miss us. I think I made a mistake. She sounded broken. Hesitant. Like she wasn't sure what she wanted, only that she didn't want me to be okay without her. But I didn't call back. I stared at the phone for an hour, scrolling through the 100 messages I wrote and never sent during the break she requested. All the things I wanted to say when I thought she just needed time. When I thought she'd come back and we'd laugh about how weird that phase was. But this wasn't a phase. This was her test run for a life without me. And she had liked it long enough to flirt with freedom and another man's arms. She dipped her toes in a different pool and now wanted to come back to dry land like nothing had changed. The truth? Everything had changed. I wasn't hers anymore. Not because I hated her. Not because I was angry. But because something deep inside me broke the night she paused our love like it was a Netflix episode she could resume later. What she didn't realize was that I had found the remote. And I had pressed delete. She started texting more. Things like, "Remember our first Halloween party together? I still have that silly cactus mug you got me. You'd be proud." I finally started journaling. Like nostalgia was supposed to be a rope she could tug on and expect me to come running. But I wasn't the same man who cried in the dark when she left. I had become someone quieter. Colder. Wiser. Someone who understood that love shouldn't require vanishing acts. That people who value you don't ask to press pause, they hold on tighter. So I left her on read. And every minute that ticked by in silence was a minute she realized I had finally learned how to let go. I didn't plan on becoming a ghost in her life. But the more she reached out, the more I realized how invisible I had felt when we were still together. It wasn't just the silence she left behind, it was the silence I'd been living in long before she ever said the words, "Take a break." I think that's what hurt most. That she assumed I'd still be standing there when she was done trying life without me. Like I was some background character in her personal drama, ready to step back into frame when the credits rolled. But no one tells you what happens when the person who broke your heart starts to realize you're healing without them. Her messages started getting longer, more frantic. I could see her unraveling. She sent a photo of the cactus mug, chipped now, and wrote, "I think I broke it while moving boxes, it made me cry." I stared at that message for a moment, wondering if she'd ever cried when she packed her things and walked away from me. Or did she just toss her hoodie in a suitcase and smile at the idea of freedom? The truth is, people don't come back for love. They come back for comfort. For the version of you that made them feel safe when their new adventure turned into a mistake. And now, I wasn't sure if she missed me or the safety I once gave her. She tried different tactics. First, the guilt, "I know I hurt you. But you have to believe I never meant to." Then the nostalgia, "Remember the night it rained and we danced in the kitchen? I played that song again last night." And finally, desperation, "Please don't leave me behind like this. At least talk to me. I feel like I'm going insane." But here's the thing. I had already gone insane. Quietly. Alone. While she was taking a break with someone who held her hand through Sedona's red rock trails and whispered things she wanted to hear. I had clawed my way back to the surface while she was living her clarity phase. She wanted to know why I didn't respond. Why I didn't call her out. Why I didn't chase her. And the answer is simple, even if it sounds cruel, because healing in silence is more powerful than screaming in pain. And now, she was the one screaming. I heard through a mutual friend, Lee, a kind-hearted soul who always warned me Emily was restless, that things had unraveled on her end. The guy from the trip? Apparently, he ghosted her after a few months. Something about not wanting to be the rebound. And when she tried to tell people she was ready to come back to me, no one seemed to know how to break it to her that I was already gone. I didn't make a show of it. I didn't post selfies at the gym or cryptic quotes about self-love. I didn't dye my hair or go on some grand spiritual journey. I just stopped orbiting around her. I started waking up without dreading the day. I began liking my own company. I started remembering who I was before I had to become her emotional crutch. But the moment that sealed everything for me happened in the grocery store. I was in the produce aisle, picking out apples, when I heard her voice behind me. "Kellen." I turned slowly. She was standing a few feet away, holding a basket. Her hair was a little longer. Her eyes tired. Her voice uncertain. She smiled weakly. "You look different." I smiled too. Not cruelly. Not coldly. Just calmly. "I feel different," I said. And in that moment, something passed between us that couldn't be taken back. She saw it in my eyes, whatever piece of me she thought would still be hers was gone. And no amount of memory, guilt, or begging could unburn what she set on fire. I nodded politely, walked past her, and never looked back. The strange thing about closure is that it doesn't always come in big, dramatic scenes. Sometimes it's just a look across a grocery store aisle. Or a moment when you realize you're no longer holding your breath for a text that never comes. For me, closure came wrapped in indifference. Not anger. Not revenge. Just a kind of tired wisdom that settles in after you've carried pain long enough to stop fearing it. After that accidental encounter with Emily at the store, I thought maybe she'd finally let go. That seeing me calm, grounded, unbothered would give her the message she refused to read in my silence. But I underestimated just how loud regret can be for the person who caused the damage. Because the silence didn't drive her away, it pulled her deeper. And I began to realize something even more unsettling: she didn't miss me. She missed the version of herself that existed when I was loving her. She started showing up in places she never used to. The coffee shop 2 blocks from my new apartment. The small bookstore I used to take her to, even though she never liked the smell of old pages. She'd linger, never speaking, just looking like a stranger waiting for permission to become familiar again. I'd see her in the corner of my eye, pretending to browse, pretending to read, pretending she hadn't already told me I wasn't enough. Then came the letter. A real one. Handwritten. Folded twice and slid into my mailbox without a return address. "Kellen. I've been trying to put this into words for weeks. Maybe months. I thought I needed space to find myself. I thought you were holding me back. But the truth is, I was scared. Of how much you loved me. Of how safe you made me feel. And instead of facing that, I ran. Into a fantasy. Into a version of me that didn't need anyone. But it was a lie. I miss you. I miss the way your voice softened when I cried. I miss how you'd remember tiny things like how I liked my tea, or how I never finished my popcorn. I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed to tell you I was wrong." I read the letter twice. Folded it neatly. Then placed it inside the box where I had kept every note she'd ever written me, the good ones, from before she blurred the line between love and cruelty. Then I taped the box shut. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it away. I just removed it from sight. Because some ghosts don't need to be exorcised. They just need to be shelved. A week later, Lee, the same mutual friend who kept me in the loop, called to say Emily had dropped out of her weekend retreat. "She's not doing well," Lee said gently. "She barely talks. She looks hollow." For a flicker of a moment, I felt a tug in my chest. Not sympathy, not yearning, just a strange echo of the man who would have once rushed to fix her. But he was gone. And all that remained was a man who had learned the hard way that you can't save someone who's still addicted to breaking themselves. That night, I sat on my tiny balcony, the Arizona air thick with silence, and I thought about the man I used to be. The one who apologized first. The one who believed love could fix anything if you just held on tighter. And I thanked him, for staying soft in a world that tries to harden you. But I didn't want to be him anymore. Because sometimes, love isn't about holding on. It's about recognizing when the weight is only yours to carry, and finally letting it fall. There's a point after heartbreak where grief no longer screams. It just hums quietly beneath your skin, a dull ache that never really leaves, but doesn't control you anymore either. That's where I found myself now. Not healed, not hardened. Just, free. And it wasn't because I had moved on to someone else. I hadn't. I hadn't even dated since Emily left. My healing wasn't about replacing her. It was about remembering who I was before I shrunk myself to fit inside someone else's uncertainty. But Emily wasn't done. Her silence had ended, and now she was making noise in all the places I once wished she would, except I no longer needed to hear it. It started with her emailing my sister. Then an old neighbor. Then she even reached out to my old coworker Trevor, who I hadn't spoken to in months. I don't know what she said to them, only that they suddenly started texting me again. Messages like, "Hey man, I heard Emily's been trying to talk to you. Just wanted to check in." Or, "You two were always solid. Maybe don't be so hard on her." Hard on her? I disappeared when she asked for space. I swallowed the ache when she posted pictures with someone else while pretending to be working on herself. I watched my life splinter quietly, without making a scene, while she pretended her betrayal was some kind of spiritual journey. And now, when I've finally stopped bleeding, they want me to reopen the wound so she can feel better. But it didn't stop there. One evening I walked into my building's lobby and found her sitting on the bench next to the mailboxes. She stood up when she saw me. Her hair was tied back. No makeup. Just her and the look of someone trying to figure out if they were about to be forgiven or broken all over again. "Kellen," she said softly. "Please." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. "I know I don't deserve to ask," she continued, voice trembling. "But can we just talk?" I looked at her. And I remembered every night I stared at my phone waiting for her to feel what I was feeling. Every voicemail I deleted without listening. Every message I wrote but never sent. I remembered how small I felt when I realized I'd been replaced before I even knew I was gone. "Talk about what?" I asked finally, my voice steady. "I'm not asking to go back," she said. "I just want you to know I'm sorry. I was selfish. I thought the grass would be greener, and when it wasn't, I came running back to where it was safe. But I know I hurt you. And you didn't deserve that." I nodded once. "You're right. I didn't." And then I turned and walked away. Not out of cruelty. Not to make her feel what I had felt. But because closure doesn't require a conversation. It doesn't need mutual understanding. Sometimes, it's just the act of no longer needing to be understood at all. When I got back to my apartment, I sat in the dark for a long while, just listening to the sound of nothing. The same nothing that used to terrify me. But now, it felt like home. There was a time when her presence was everything I craved. Now, her absence was the only thing that made sense. And the tragic irony? She only wanted me back after I stopped needing her. The next few weeks should have felt victorious. I had faced her, listened to her apology, and walked away without flinching. That used to be my fantasy. To finally have the upper hand. To not be the one left clutching unanswered messages and unfinished memories. But the truth? It didn't feel triumphant. It felt hollow. Like finishing a race and realizing the medal doesn't matter when no one was really cheering in the first place. I didn't regret walking away. But I hadn't expected the weight that followed. Because what no one tells you is that even when you don't want someone back, their attempt to return still scrapes against the old bruises. Her apology wasn't wrong. It just came too late to be useful. It was like someone throwing you a life vest after you already learned how to swim through the pain. Emily stopped trying to reach me directly, but I could feel her presence everywhere. Her shadow lingered in my routines. Her name appeared in conversations I wasn't part of. I even got an invitation to a gallery event she was hosting, one that celebrated self-transformation and healing through chaos. I didn't go. But I looked up the photos later. She stood beneath spotlights, smiling with that curated confidence she always wore when she wanted to look like she was thriving. But her eyes told a different story, that kind of lost, glassy look you get when the mirror finally stops lying. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding things slowly. My friendships. My relationship with my sister. My connection to myself. I signed up for cooking classes, something I'd always wanted to do but never made time for. I adopted a senior dog from a local shelter, a sleepy golden retriever named Duffy who limped a little and snored louder than any human I've met. He became my best companion. No questions. No confusion. Just steady, simple love. One evening, after walking Duffy through the neighborhood trail, I got a text from an unknown number. "I heard you've been doing well. I'm glad. I mean that." It wasn't signed, but I knew who it was. The kind of message that tries to sound selfless but carries 1,000 silent questions underneath. I didn't respond. I deleted it. But I didn't delete the sting. Because no matter how far I moved forward, a part of me still grieved what could have been if she hadn't quit when things got difficult. That's what so many people don't understand. Love isn't about the perfect moment. It's about what you do when the shine fades. When the silence stretches. When the fantasy of, what if, collides with the mess of, what is. Emily had failed that test. And now, ironically, she was the one haunted by the ghost of me, not the other way around. She tried to follow me on Instagram again. Then Facebook. Then sent a friend request to my sister, who immediately blocked her. The chase wasn't romantic anymore. It was desperate. It reeked of someone who thought she could spin the wheel one more time and land on the life she left behind. But the version of me she wanted? He didn't exist anymore. He had died quietly in the spaces between her silence and the man I had to become to survive it. And maybe that's the worst kind of loss, not when someone leaves, but when they evolve in your absence and you realize they're now living in a world where your name is no longer welcome. I wish I could say that after everything, after the heartbreak, the silence, the rebuilding, I had reached a place where none of it touched me anymore. But that would be a lie. The truth is, healing isn't some neat arc with a satisfying conclusion. It's jagged. Uneven. Some mornings I woke up feeling strong, light, like I had finally reclaimed something she'd taken from me. But other mornings, I'd catch the scent of a perfume that reminded me of her or see a book she once left dog-eared on my shelf, and the weight would return. Not heavy enough to crush me, but enough to remind me it was still there. It was on one of those quiet, foggy mornings when it happened. I was grabbing coffee at a quiet place near the edge of town. I had my headphones in, lost in a playlist I'd built for peace, not drama. That's when I saw her, Emily, walking in behind me. Her expression changed the moment our eyes met. She looked older, not in a tired way, but in that way grief matures people. She wasn't wearing makeup. No carefully constructed Instagram version of herself. Just a plain sweatshirt, hair pulled back, no armor. And I could see it clearly in her eyes, she wasn't there by accident. I took my coffee and stepped outside. The breeze was cold but welcome. I thought maybe she'd walk away. She didn't. A few moments later, she followed, clutching her cup like it was something to hold on to when the world slips. "I was hoping I'd see you," she said quietly. "I figured," I replied, not cold, just honest. She stared down at the pavement. I keep going over everything in my head. What I said. What I didn't say. And I know I don't deserve it, but I just want to ask one thing. I said nothing. I let the silence stretch, like a thread waiting to snap. "Is there still a chance?" she whispered. And there it was. The question I thought I would have begged to hear months ago. The one I used to dream about when I cried myself to sleep wondering what I'd done wrong. The fantasy. The redemption arc. The do-over. But it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like someone handing me the keys to a house I no longer wanted to live in. I looked at her, not with anger, not with satisfaction, but with a kind of gentle sorrow that can only come from someone who once loved deeply and survived the collapse. "I don't hate you," I said. "But I've learned to live without you. And I'm not willing to give that peace up again." Her eyes welled up. I saw her swallow something hard, regret, maybe, or the version of herself that thought she could always come back. "I never meant to lose you," she said, voice breaking. "You didn't lose me," I said, finishing my coffee. "You let me go. I just finally accepted it." We stood there in silence for a few seconds more, and then I nodded once, turned, and walked away. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just, done. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't replay her words. I didn't overthink whether I was too harsh or whether part of me still wanted her. Because for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't questioning myself. I slept with the windows open, the desert air cool against my skin, and my dog curled up at my feet. I didn't dream about her. I didn't dream at all. And when I woke up the next morning, it was the first time I truly understood what freedom felt like. It's strange how peace can be so quiet you barely notice it arriving. It doesn't crash in or demand to be felt. It just seeps into the spaces that once ached. One day, I realized I hadn't thought about Emily in hours. Then days. Then weeks. And when her name did cross my mind again, it didn't come with pain. Just a distant memory of a man I used to be and the woman who helped teach me how not to lose myself again. My life didn't become a movie montage of triumph. There was no dramatic new love interest or career explosion. But something better happened. I became whole. I started hiking again, not to distract myself, but because the silence of the desert made me feel like I belonged somewhere. I painted a room in my apartment bright yellow for no reason other than it made me feel good. I spent more time with my sister, who always knew I deserved better but waited for me to find out on my own. And Duffy, my old, snoring, loyal golden retriever, became my constant. Every evening, we'd walk the trails as the sun set behind the mountains, and I'd realize that happiness doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes, it looks like a dog sighing contently beside you while the sky turns orange. I heard Emily eventually moved to another city. Someone told me she was working on a book. I hope it gives her the closure she never found with me. I don't hate her. In some complicated, softened way, I even thank her. Because without the chaos she brought, I might have never learned how to stand in stillness. So if you're watching this and you've been left behind, if someone asked you for space and then forgot to come back, I want to tell you something that took me far too long to believe. You are not what someone else abandoned. You are what you choose to rebuild. And sometimes, what breaks you is exactly what sets you free. Thank you for watching this story on Reddit Confessions. If any part of this journey reminded you of a moment in your own life, or if you've ever experienced a pause that became permanent, let us know in the comments. What did you learn from letting go? We'd love to hear your story below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for more real stories, right here on Reddit Confessions. Would you like me to create a YouTube title and description for this story as well?